When the serpentine belt wraps itself around the pulley or the rear of the crank pulley, you want to make sure that you get all the bits out by removing the crank pulley and inspecting the seal. So VR6 engine. You can see, sorry, you can see how entangled it got itself. I think the seal is starting to pull out here. That's the seal right there. It's always fun when a serpentine belt goes. You can see the belt pushed the seal back into the engine. You can see the lip here. Let me grab my pointer. So all of this here, the seal got pushed in, should be sitting just under this edge here, and you can see in between this, the crank and the seal, bits and pieces. Oil leaks develop because of it. This VR6 Golf came in for a water pump that was bad, so it's got the new water pump in here. But what we noticed is that there's oil running along here, and there's a small tiny crack, and if you look carefully, there's impact marks all along here. Sorry about the focus. Yeah, I really can't tell if it's in focus or not. So tow truck driver, we believe it was a tow truck driver. Customer doesn't know if it was or not. The car was stopped off on the weekend, so we don't know which towing company it was. But anyways, an overheating or a leaky water pump, which we told them about quite a while ago, turned into a seized water pump, which turned into a broken serpentine belt, which took out the crank seal. So there's a new crank seal in there now. Yeah, so little things just snowballed on this one, but luckily they're going for all of it. 2001 Golf VR6, had to bang the crap out of this one to get it out. It sits in the vehicle like this. This corner broke off, obviously. This one got chipped, and basically there are tabs here for prying. You should just be able to go in behind and pry. Here's a tab here that's still okay, but because it was so stuck, best thing to do is just to try to rotate it, and that's what these marks are. So I used a long pry bar, I hit against here, and then slowly but surely the pump started to rotate, and then I just went back and forth, and I kept spraying WD-40 in between, and eventually a gap would develop, and then it would just pop out. So yeah, do what you have to in order to get it out. And as always, installation is a reverse of removal, except for the banging part. Just finished going for a test drive. When I look down, and what do I see? 318. For whatever reason, I decided to look at the power meter, and what do I see? 318. Haven't done Vanagon exhaust work for quite a while. Yeah, didn't really miss it that much. Can be a pain in the butt because of all the rust. Somebody took a nap and forgot to wake up. Holy. You gonna go grab it? Sure. Yeah. Ew. Crunchy. Crunchy. Ah! Ah! 07 Rabbit, ever since we did the vacuum pump that's mounted to the side of the cylinder head and an oil pan, the passenger front door and the passenger rear door do not lock or unlock, and the windows don't work. So yeah, ever since we did those two initial repairs, this was after our first visit, first time customer, and pretty much said right after picking up the vehicle that it hasn't worked since. We did some initial checking, verified that it couldn't have been related to the work we did. The technician actually even remembers when he locked the vehicle after he was done that the alarm horn would not beep as it should, verifying that the alarm is armed. I posted a video recently for the Mark IVs that if the alarm does not arm when you lock the vehicle, that means that the vehicle is waiting for a door or a trunk or a hood to close, and that's what's happening in this vehicle. The essential convenience module, alarm module, whatever, is waiting for those doors, the passenger doors, to close. Upon further investigating, we found some corrosion on one of the pins here. It's going to be hard to see, but one of these pins has corrosion on it. So we mentioned that to the guy and said most likely you're looking at a passenger door module. This is the window regulator, but it's also the main module, the door control module. So once we pointed out the corrosion, he says, oh yeah, it actually happened after I washed the vehicle. I had some intermittent problems. So yeah, long story short, you know, ever since we did it, right? Gotta love customers. Anyways, the way we figured out it was this. Obviously checked powers and grounds, and there was communication on the CAN lines, on the high and the low. Signal was good, so we knew that there was no issues with the communication wires to the module. And the rear door is a slave module, so they basically ties together. Once we replace this guy here, the front front passenger module here, the rear is working perfectly. Okay, that's a long enough video. Sorry about the rambling. We're always guilty. Okay, I got it at high idle right now. No flow at all. I already blew into the hose and the air goes, so there's no restriction. There should be flow right now. There isn't. It's a typical sign of a water pump, a failed water pump. Coolant temperature sensor, signal too low. Signal too low means it's too hot. And then temperature right now, it's already at 94. At 94, the radiator should be warm right now, which it's not. It's cold. Same with the lower radiator hose. There's a little bit of warmth. He might have a thermostat that opens early, which would explain why the hose here is getting warm. But the core itself is cold, and like I said, there's no flow. Can you rev it for me a little bit? Just make sure the stick doesn't jam, but go to about 2,500, 3,000. Okay. Yeah, this water pump is no good. It needs a water pump. So I pulled the water pump and it came out in one piece, and I go, oh shit. But then I took a closer look. It's cracked, and you can see it just spins. Hold on. I gotta hold the bottom here. I can't do it one-handedly. One sec. Okay, bad pump. Okay, holding the RPM at just below 2,000 RPM, and you can see lots of flow. Before there was nothing. Just a little bit of misting, and you can get this thing to act up. The spark plug wire here. Just missed it with a bit of water and a little bit of ammonia, or anything else that's conductive. Actually, I'm not even sure if ammonia is conductive, but it seems to work for us. Quality fuses are stamped with white numbers. This one is a 30 amp fuse and it's not stamped white. And it looks like this thing got hot for quite a while before it failed. It's all cloudy. There's a little bit of burnt material on the inside, or burnt color I should say. But yeah, it definitely took its time blowing. This is out of my car. Radio hasn't been working, and that would explain why now. But play safe, buy good quality fuses. 95 Eurovan electric water pump is leaking. You can see right here, very common with age. And then it'll leave some drips. Rather than just move the clamps and then have coolant rush out, use hose clamps or hose clamp pliers to block the flow. Then you can even do it while the system is under pressure with hot coolant. Obviously I would advise against it just for safety's sake, but now if you open up the clamps, the only coolant that's going to come out is what's remaining in the pump and in the two hose ends. And then this way you can just detach the pump, attach the new one, attach the hoses, and then just top up the fluid in the reservoir up at the top. Or whichever engine you have that has an electric water pump. Similar idea, space permitting. BEW TDI Jetta 2004 BEW 1.9 liter TDI. That's the one that has the electric fuel pump in the tank, because it's a Pumpadooza TDI, PD TDI. The ALH TDI does not have a fuel pump in the tank. It uses the injection pump to suck fluid out of the tank. In this one here, customer put gasoline into the tank, did not start the engine, so it's fairly straightforward on this one. I just take some jumper wires attached to battery power, and I let the pump do its job of emptying the gas tank. Once the tank is, and again he didn't start it, so once the tank is empty, put some diesel in it and he's good to go. We're still going to change the fuel filter up at the front, put some diesel purge in there as well. Small amounts of gasoline remaining is not an issue on these TDIs. It's the common rail TDIs that you have to worry about. Any contamination will cause excessive wear on the high pressure fuel pump, and then that causes shavings to get into the fuel system, plugs up injectors, and you have horror stories of, you know, $7,000 to $11,000 engine repair or fuel system repair. But luckily these older TDIs, not a big deal. Okay, so then I just let it run until the stream started to sputter, or I got more air bubbles than anything else. So now the system is empty. I already put in 20 liters of diesel. So now I'm just going to let it run again until I get a steady stream of diesel. Okay, and you can see it just, the color change. It went from bubbling to nice clear. We'll just let it run a little bit. And then that's it. Put in a new fuel filter with diesel purge and she'll be good to go. Yeah, that spare tire is not going to get checked today. '90 Vanagon, no power to the ignition coil at the back. When turning the key on, the battery light and oil light come on, which means the ignition switch is feeding voltage to the cluster. but you can see there's a burnt connection here, this guy right there, and that's the out going to the ignition coil. And I don't have my tester here, but anyways, that's a burnt connection. Rather than repinning it, because the pin is probably crap as well, I'm gonna cut this wire here and then splice it in with the ignition switch wire over here. The wire that goes into the fuse box still feeds the internal of the fuse box with ignition power. It's just, like I said, the out is compromised, and that's why it's burnt. So everything else in here should still get power from ignition key on position, because the ignition in wire is still okay at the connector. It's just the out for the coil that's an issue. So bypassing the fuse box is not going to cause any issues, and it isn't fused in here. You can check your circuit diagrams if you'd like, but that's that. Okay, so here's the wire. I cut it so it's no longer going to the fuse box, and I found a connector back here, a spade connector or a connection. When I turn the key on, this pin gets power, so I spliced it here or to there, and that actually might be a fuse connection. I can double check that later by pulling fuses, but anyways, I got my horn. I have a horn hooked up to the ignition coil at the back, so when I turn the key on, if that wire fixed it, you should hear a horn. So that's a good enough fix for me. That coil is getting power, and it turns off when it's supposed to, or the power does. So at least now I can continue troubleshooting. The car had an issue with wouldn't shut off. You turn the key off and the engine would keep running, which was weird, obviously, because of this burnt connection. This burnt connection would cause more of a no start, which it did now for me. But something in the system was feeding back into the ignition circuit, causing it to stay on. So anyways, that's it. If I find more, I'll update more. Whenever you have a broken serpentine belt, you want to make sure that nothing got in behind the pulley and got sucked into the timing belt area. In this case, the belt was replaced and the vehicle ran fine, but X amount of time later, the broken pieces made their way into the timing belt area and then got caught between the gear and the belt, and then it jumped timing. Initial complaint was loss of power, and then to the point of no start and stalling. This plastic wear here, that's from the pulley rubbing up against it. Over time the pulley separates, and then it comes closer and closer to the plastic cover. Obviously replacing that would also be of benefit. It could have also been that the serpentine belt, whatever pieces were left in here, were or that were wrapped around the back of the pulley, were the cause of this, and then got sucked in. That might be more plausible at this point, but I have seen wear on the plastic cover from a worn or loose old crank pulley. When you left your Eat More candy bar in the refrigerator for too long and it's rock solid right now and you can't eat it, you put it on your hood where it's nice and warm, and then you just give it a couple of turns every couple of minutes, and it'll be good to go, good to eat. Hi guys, I reply to posts and comments under my YouTube videos as quickly as I can. Some messages fall through the cracks and I never get notified. I just actually found one today that was posted 2 years ago, and I ended up replying to it because I didn't for some reason reply to it 2 years ago. Long story short, last week I got a message on YouTube. I replied fairly quickly, and then I got a reply from that person who initially asked the question, saying that I sent a postcard asking about the subject in the video, so that I can ignore the postcard because I just replied. So I guess he wasn't aware that I do reply fairly quickly. And sure enough, a week later, here's the postcard asking the question that he was asking. But yeah, I found that funny. Somebody going the extra mile, wanting to get an answer, sending a postcard. No return address, which would have defeated the fact of asking the question. Keep that in mind, you know. And you need the return address on your postcards.